So you have seen, whether you are studying the metabolism of amino acids or metabolism of nucleotides or nucleic acids, you saw that nitrogen play a very, very important role. Actually, if there was no nitrogen, there would have been no amino acids. And you also know that amino acids are very important in the synthesis of nucleotides also, because they provide the major nitrogen component to the nucleotides. So in that way, the nitrogen plays a very important role in the formation of DNA, in the formation of RNA, in the formation of protein, and also in the formation of chlorophyll, and so on and so forth. So it's one of the most important inorganic molecule for the living processes, for the living bodies. So nature have devised a way to keep its amount, its concentration in a balance in our ecosystem. And this strategy or this way is known as the nitrogen cycle. The pathways or some of the pathways because of which the nitrogen remains in a balance in our ecosystem. So as I have already told you, nitrogen plays very important role in our bodies in the formation of different macromolecules. It is one of the most abundant, actually it's the most abundant inorganic molecule in our atmosphere. It is found in the N2 form, the diatomic form. There is a triple bond between two nitrogen atoms, or two nitrogen elements. It's very necessary for organisms because you know that without these organisms you cannot make the important macromolecules, and also it plays a very important role in the overall balance of the nutrients in the ecosystem. That's why it's known as the limiting nutrient for the ecosystem. As far as the whole cycle is concerned, we can start it by starting from the atmospheric nitrogen. Atmospheric nitrogen somehow is absorbed by the soil, and in the soil then this cannot be utilized by the living bodies or plants for the process, for the formation of the macromolecules, in which nitrogen is a very important component. So what is done is that in the soil there are certain bacteria which are involved in the fixation of the nitrogen, which give rise to the formation of what we say the ammonia. Now ammonia is then used by plants, but ammonia is very toxic, so very limited amount of ammonia is assimilated by plants. Most of the ammonia has to be converted into those components which are more useful and least harmful. That's why the nitrification process occurs, because of which after the oxidation the ammonia is converted into nitrites and nitrates. These nitrites and nitrates are then assimilated by the plants, and then in plants they give rise to the formation of the compounds for which nitrogen is really known for, like the formation of nucleic acids, or the formation of DNA, formation of nucleic acids, or the formation of the proteins. Not only the nitrification, also the denitrification process also occurs. Though the denitrification is not directly important for the synthesis of the different macromolecules, but still it's important to maintain a balance of nitrogen. So what happens in the denitrification, that the nitrates and nitrites which are formed, they are then they give rise to the formation of nitrogen gas, which then become the part of the atmospheric nitrogen. Then also similarly the NMOX property, in which the ammonia is then oxidized to give rise to the formation of what we say the nitrogen gas. So there are two ways in which these nitrogen moieties then be converted back to the nitrogen gas. One is the denitrification and the other is NMOXification. I will come to this cycle later, first we study this step by step, and then we will come to this cycle so that you can really understand it well. As I have told you that nitrogen cannot be used directly. It has to be fixed first in the formation of ammonia. That is known as the fixation of the nitrogen. It's a very, very energy demanding process. Actually, 16 ATP molecules are utilized, which shows that how energy consuming process this is, and it is done by certain soil bacteria like rhizobium. Then the ammonia is then oxidized to give rise to the formation of nitrites, and then nitrites are further oxidized to give rise to the formation of nitrates, which are then assimilated by the plants. Also keep in mind that this here the oxygen is play a very important role, because it's the oxidation process. This is why we used to plow the, if you go to the villages, you can see the farmers are all the time or most of the time are involved in plowing their fields, the soil of their field, because it helps not only to level up the soil, but also to make the oxygen available to most of or maximum component of the soil, because it helps in the nitrification process, because nitrates then will be assimilated by the plant, which will give rise to the formation of different structures in the plant. That's why plowing is very important, because it leads to the oxidation process. Then when there is lesser oxygen, in the absence of oxygen, or in the when you are facing very lack of oxygen, then denitrification process takes place, in which the nitrates and nitrites are converted into nitrogen gas. So this process has environmental significance. It leads to for instance, if there is excessive nitrates are accumulated in the soil, they can be then avoided, or they can the ecosystem can get rid of them through the process of denitrification. That's why it has a very important function in the agriculture also, because more and more, I mean, of course nitrates are to some extent fine, very nice, they can be used by the plants, but their excess can also be toxic. And also they are very important in the wastewater treatment. You know, if you in the water, if there is more and more accumulation of nitrates, it can really give rise to the formation of different toxins, which can be harmful for the different species which are living in that part of the area. So that's why the denitrification process also help in maintenance of the overall ecosystem of that area. And also there is another aspect you can't forget is that, or you can't ignore, is that when we will die, I mean, we mean all the living organisms, when we die, whether animals or plants, when we are buried, our bodies are then decomposed, and after the process of decomposition, ammonia is released, and that ammonia then again is involved in the formation of nitrates and nitrites, which can be used either by the plants and then become the part of the nitrogen cycle, and they can also be then denitrified, giving rise to the formation of nitrogen gas again. So in this way, this cycle goes on. Yes, this figure I wanted to show you now, because now you have learned that how the nitrogen is recycled now through different processes. Let's have a glimpse of this figure now. Now you can see here that this is the nitrogen, this is the atmospheric nitrogen. This atmospheric nitrogen is fixed through the formation of ammonia. This ammonia, after the process of nitrification, is changed into nitrite and nitrates, and that is then denitrified. After the process of denitrification is then again give rise to the formation of nitrogen gas. Fine. And also when we die, our bodies also decompose, giving rise to the formation of ammonia. In this way, nitrogen gas to ammonia, ammonia to nitrate, nitrate to nitrite, ammonia to nitrite, nitrite to nitrates, and then again they can be denitrified giving rise to the formation of nitrogen gas again, and also after decomposition, giving rise to the ammonia again. So in this way, in this process of ammonification and nitrification and denitrification, all they contribute towards a balance in the concentration of nitrogen in our atmosphere, in our ecosystem. Another aspect, because this age in which we are living, one of the biggest dilemma of this age is what we say the climate change. And one of the reasons of this climate change is that there is excessive utilization of fossil fuels. When we will use the fossil fuels, as I have already told you, the dead bodies, they decay, and or the fuel which is utilized for the car engine and so on and so forth, they after combustion will again give rise to the production of more and more nitrogen or nitrogen containing compounds, which can really harm the ecosystem. Environmental consequences of this excessive production of the nitrogen components or nitrogen containing compounds is that it can lead to the oxygen depletion, for instance, in water, for instance, because you know that there is ammonia needs oxidation for nitrification, and nitrites also needs oxidation. So most of the oxygen is utilized in this process, and that really leads to depletion of the oxygen. And then when there is more and more accumulation of these nitrites and nitrates or ammonia, it leads to the production of many toxins which are toxic for many species, which leads to the loss of the biodiversity. So in this way, it's very important to understand nitrogen cycle in all its entirety. It's not only about DNA or proteins or different macromolecules it make. It is also very important for the overall health of the ecosystem.